My name is Rosemary Ellis. I am 70 years old, and on Christmas Eve, I learned that a mother's love can be the very chain her child uses to bind her. The scent of pine and roasting turkey still hung in the air, a cruel mockery of the celebration happening just beyond my bedroom door. I can still hear the precise, metallic click of the key turning in the lock. From the outside. Then her voice. Helen's voice. My daughter-in-law. It was sweet as poison honey. I just want my family at the table tonight. Rosemary, you should rest. You've done enough. From my side of the door, I was imprisoned in a symphony of my own making. The laughter I had hoped to join. The clinking of wine glasses I had polished that morning. The rich aroma of the chestnut stuffing I had prepared from my mother's recipe. And then the voice of my grandson Leo, so small and confused. Where's Grandma Rosie? And Helen's reply, so smooth, so final. Grandma is very tired, sweetheart. She's already eaten. I sat on the edge of my bed, my hands trembling. Not from fear, but from a fury so profound it felt cold. It was the crystallization of 3 years of slow-burning humiliation. On my nightstand, a photograph bore witness. My son Thomas at 7 years old, his arms wrapped around my neck on a long-ago Christmas, his face alight with a love that felt like a lifetime away. He had promised me then he would always take care of me. I closed my eyes, drawing a breath that shuddered in my chest. And in that breath I remembered the thing I had done 3 days prior. A secret. A piece of knowledge that was mine and mine alone. A truth that was about to change everything. But while they raised their glasses of French champagne in a toast to their perfect locked-door family, the doorbell rang. Before I tell you what happened when that door opened, you need to understand how I, Rosemary Ellis, ended up a prisoner in my son's house. You need to know the woman I was before. The woman who still believed in promises. 5 years ago, my life had a different shape. I lived in my cottage, the one with the overgrown garden where I grew roses and lavender. The home where I'd raised Thomas, where every creak in the floorboards was a familiar friend, where my husband Henry had passed peacefully in his sleep 2 years before. The silence, there was a companion, not a judge. Thomas visited every Sunday. He'd bring the children, Leo and little Clara. He was always attentive, always concerned. Mom, are you sure you're okay here all alone? It's such a big house for one person. Then one Tuesday he arrived with Helen. She was tall, impeccably dressed, with a smile that didn't quite touch her eyes. She swept through my cottage like a well-mannered hurricane. Rosemary, what a charming home, she'd said, her fingers tracing the spine of my favorite book on the shelf. Thomas has told me so much about you. She called me Rosemary from the start, a subtle distance I was too naive to recognize. I served her tea and scones, and she praised them with a practiced grace. Thomas watched her mesmerized. And I, a fool, thought, how wonderful, my son has found such a polished woman. I didn't see the way her eyes calculated the value of my furniture. I didn't understand that she was already measuring the space, not for memories but for potential. 6 months later, Thomas came with his proposal. Mom, Helen and I have found the most wonderful house. It has a mother-in-law suite and a huge yard for the kids. But the down payment, it's astronomical. He didn't need to finish. The hook was set. If you sold this cottage, he continued, his voice soft, you could come live with us. You'd never be lonely. You'd see the children every day. It's the perfect solution. Helen placed her hand over mine. Her skin was cool. It would be such a blessing, Rosemary. The children adore you. We could be a real family. That word, family, it disarmed me completely. I signed the papers a month later. My cottage, my sanctuary, sold for a sum that felt like a betrayal. I gave Thomas $80,000 for the down payment on his new modern house in a sterile gated community. The rest I put into a savings account, my safety net, or so I thought. The one thing I did not do, the oversight that would become my salvation, was put my name on the new deed. It's just a formality, Mom, Thomas had said. The lawyer said it's simpler this way. It's for all of us. And I, trusting the boy I had raised, agreed. The first few months in the mother-in-law suite were a honeymoon period. I made breakfast. I took the children to the park. I felt useful, needed. But slowly the atmosphere shifted. The comments began, always wrapped in that same polished smile. Rosemary, the children really shouldn't have so much sugar. In my family, we're very careful about that. Oh, that story is a bit frightening for them, don't you think? Maybe something more modern. Rosemary, could you perhaps use the back entrance when you've been gardening? The mud. I apologized. I contorted myself to fit into the narrow space they allowed me. Then one day I came down to find the living room rearranged. My favorite armchair, the one Henry had bought me for our 40th anniversary, was gone. Helen, where is my chair? She didn't look up from her tablet. Oh, that old thing? It clashed terribly with the new sofa. It's in the garage storage. I'm sure it's fine. Thomas said nothing. The final straw was my mother's porcelain nativity set. It had been passed down for 3 generations. I went to set it out for Christmas and couldn't find it. Helen, have you seen the nativity figures? She sighed, as if I'd asked a great favor. Rosemary, those were looking a little worn. I donated them to the church rummage sale. We have a lovely new crystal one now. Donated. My history, my heritage given away like common junk. I felt a piece of my soul wither and die. The campaign to erase me escalated. Thomas, I heard Helen say one night, their voices carrying through the vent. Don't you think your mother would be happier in a retirement community? They have such lovely activities for people her age. I waited, my breath held, for my son's defense. It never came. There was only a heavy, complicit silence. That was the night I stopped being Thomas's mother and officially became Helen's problem. The brochure for Sunset Haven Senior Living appeared on my bed a week later. The prices were circled in red pen. I was no longer just sad. I was angry. And an angry woman, even at 70, is a force to be reckoned with. While they were out, I made a call to an old friend, Benjamin Croft. He'd been Henry's lawyer for 40 years, and he'd known Thomas since he was in diapers. Benjamin, I said, my voice steadier than it had been in months. I need your help. I told him everything. The sale of my cottage, the missing nativity, the brochure, the chilling conversations I'd overheard. He listened, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Rosemary, he said finally, what you're describing is financial exploitation and psychological abuse. But we need proof. Solid, irrefutable proof. What do I need to do? First, he said, you start a journal. Dates, times, direct quotes. Second, I'm going to send you a device. A small, discreet voice-activated recorder. You carry it with you. We need to hear it from their own mouths. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. Record my own son? Rosemary, your son is allowing this to happen. He is a participant. We are not attacking him. We are building a defense to protect you. The recorder arrived in a plain box. It was smaller than a matchbox. I felt a profound shame carrying it, a sense of betrayal. But Benjamin's words echoed in my mind. This is not an attack. It is a defense. So I documented. I recorded. I became a silent archivist of my own humiliation. October 14th. Helen told Thomas the first a sinking ship dragging down their marriage. November 3rd. Thomas agreed to look at options for my relocation. November 28th. Helen on the phone with her sister. I can't wait to have my house back. She's like a ghost that keeps using the coffee machine. The evidence mounted. And with it, my resolve hardened. They made their move in mid-December. Rosemary, Helen said, her tone leaving no room for argument. We need this room for a home office. We found you a lovely assisted living facility. You'll move in after the new year. I looked at Thomas. Is this what you want, son? He couldn't meet my gaze. Mom, it's for the best. You'll have more independence. Independence. I laughed, a dry, hollow sound. You sold my independence for me when I sold my cottage. The argument that followed was ugly. It ended with Helen's ultimatum. You have until Christmas to get your affairs in order. If you're not out by then, we will have you legally removed. I was defeated. Or so they thought. I called Benjamin. They're evicting me. After Christmas. Good, he said, to my astonishment. Good. Now we have our timeline. Rosemary, I want you to listen carefully. On Christmas Eve, you are going to do exactly as I say. He laid out the plan. It was audacious. It was brutal. And it was just. On December 23rd, I packed a single suitcase with my most precious things. Henry's watch, my photo albums, the few pieces of jewelry my mother had left me. I left it hidden in my closet. Then, I did the one thing Benjamin had instructed that seemed to have no connection to anything. Task that was entirely for me. I visited a small struggling bookstore downtown and purchased a first edition of Thomas's favorite childhood book, The Wind in the Willows. I had it wrapped in simple, elegant paper. It was my final desperate offering of love before the war began. Christmas Eve arrived. The house was a flurry of activity. Helen's family was there, laughing, drinking, utterly oblivious to the silent drama unfolding in their midst. Played my part. I was quiet. I was helpful. I was the ghost they thought I was. Then, as dinner was served, Helen approached me. Rosemary, you look peaky. Why don't you go lie down in your room? I'll have Thomas bring you a plate later. It wasn't a suggestion. She herded me towards the stairs, and as I entered my room, I heard the definitive click of the lock. I sat on the bed, the recorder in my pocket now active, capturing the sounds of my imprisonment. The laughter from downstairs was a physical pain. I heard Leo ask for me again. I heard Helen's lie. And then I heard the doorbell. Chaos. Muffled voices. The sound of the lock turning. My door swung open. Thomas stood there, his face pale. Mom, he stammered. There's someone here for you. I walked downstairs, my back straight. The entire party was frozen, staring at the doorway. And there stood Benjamin Croft, not in his friendly cardigan, but in a sharp dark suit, holding a leather-bound folder. Good evening, he said, his voice cutting through the festive music. My name is Benjamin Croft, and I am the legal counsel for Mrs. Rosemary Ellis. He looked directly at Helen. Mrs. Ellis, are you the owner of this property? Helen sputtered. This is my home. What is the meaning of this? Benjamin ignored her, turning to the gathered guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption on this holy night. But elder abuse does not take holidays. He opened the folder. I am here to serve Mrs. Helen Ellis with a preliminary injunction and a notice of a civil lawsuit for financial exploitation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and unlawful imprisonment. The room erupted in gasps. Unlawful imprisonment? Thomas cried. Benjamin turned his steely gaze to my son. Locking an individual in a room against their will, Thomas, is called unlawful imprisonment. I have the audio recording from the device in your mother's pocket, time-stamped just minutes ago, which captures the entire event, including your son asking for his grandmother and your wife stating that Mrs. Ellis had already eaten, when no food had been provided. Helen's face was a mask of horror. Thomas looked as if he'd been shot. This is a list of the financial contributions Mrs. Ellis made to this household, Benjamin continued, handing a document to a stunned Helen. $80,000 down payment. 36 months of mortgage supplements. Furniture. Appliances. A total of $158,000. We are seeking full restitution. He then looked at me. Rosemary, your suitcase? It's in my closet, I said, my voice clear in the dead silence. Locked in. Thomas finally found his voice, a broken whisper. Mom, you recorded us? I looked at my son, the little boy from the photograph, now a stranger. You left me no choice, Thomas. You stopped listening to me a long time ago. So I had to find another way to make you hear. I walked to the closet, retrieved my suitcase, and handed Leo the wrapped copy of The Wind in the Willows. For you, my darling. Never forget that I love you. Then, without a backward glance, I walked out of that house with Benjamin Croft, into the cold, clean Christmas air. I was free. The war was just beginning, but for the first time in years I was on the offensive. I was no longer Rosemary the burden. I was Rosemary, the woman who fought back. The cold night air felt like a baptism. Each breath was a sharp, cleansing pain. Benjamin held the car door open for me, his face a mask of professional calm, but I saw the flicker of fury in his eyes. "Where to, Rosemary?" he asked as he slid into the driver's seat. I gave him the address of a modest hotel I'd booked days prior, following Benjamin's contingency plan. As the car pulled away from the house I'd paid for, I didn't look back. Looking back was for ghosts, and I was finally becoming solid again. The hotel room was small, sterile, and beautiful in its anonymity. No one knew me here. No one had expectations. I sat on the edge of the bed, the same way I had hours earlier, but now the trembling in my hands was from adrenaline, not despair. I took out the small recorder and placed it on the nightstand. It was my Excalibur, and I had just drawn it from the stone. My phone began to vibrate. Thomas. Then Helen. Then Thomas again. I silenced it and placed it in a drawer. The silence that followed was not heavy. It was sacred. For the first time in 3 years, the silence was mine. The next morning, Christmas Day, I unplugged the hotel phone and kept my mobile off. I ordered room service, eggs, bacon, toast, coffee, and ate every bite without guilt. No one was watching my cholesterol, my sugar, my existence. When I finally turned on my phone in the afternoon, it was a deluge. 37 missed calls. Dozens of texts ranging from Thomas's pleading, "Mom, please, we can fix this," to Helen's rage, "How dare you humiliate us?" to messages from bewildered relatives. I didn't respond. Benjamin had been clear. No contact. Let them sit in the mess they've made. Let the uncertainty fester. The only call I took was from Benjamin himself. "The preliminary documents have been filed," he said. "The wheels of justice are turning, Rosemary. They've retained a lawyer, a shark named Albright. He's going to try to paint you as a senile, manipulative old woman." "Let him try," I said, my voice steady. "I have the receipts. In every sense of the word." With a portion of my savings, I rented a small, sunny apartment across town. It had no memories, only potential. I bought a comfortable armchair, a new bed, and I placed Henry's photograph on the mantelpiece. It was not a retreat, it was a beachhead. My old friend Mavis, whom I'd neglected under Helen's subtle isolation, welcomed me back with open arms. She helped me hang curtains and shared pots of tea filled with gossip and solidarity. I started visiting the local library. I joined a weekly knitting circle, not because I needed to knit, but because I needed a circle. I was Rosemary Ellis, library patron, knitter, friend. I was reclaiming my identity piece by piece. Weeks later, I sat in a conference room across from Thomas, Helen, and their lawyer, Mr. Albright. He was everything Benjamin said he would be. Slick, condescending, trying to poke holes in my story. "Mrs. Ellis," Albright began, "isn't it true you often felt confused about financial matters? That your son, out of love, was simply managing your affairs?" "I was never confused," I replied, looking directly at Thomas. "I knew exactly how much I gave him. $80,000. I have the bank transfer records." He shifted tactics. "The incident on Christmas Eve. Isn't it possible you simply misunderstood? That the door was accidentally locked." Benjamin slid a transcript across the table. Page 4, line 12. Let me read Helen Ellis's words captured on the device. "I just want my family at the table tonight. Rosemary, you should rest." And then the distinct sound of a key turning. There is no misunderstanding the intent. Thomas flinched. He had heard the audio. Hearing it again in this sterile room stripped it of all deniability. He came to my apartment unannounced, looking haggard. I almost didn't let him in, but the boy in his eyes, the one from the photograph, pleaded with me. The moment he stepped inside, he broke. He didn't make excuses. He didn't blame Helen. He fell onto my new sofa and sobbed great, heaving sobs that seemed to tear him apart. "I listened to it all, Mom," he choked out. "The recordings Benjamin sent over. All of them. I heard the way she spoke about you. I heard the things I said. The things I didn't say. I am so ashamed." I let him cry. I did not comfort him. He needed to sit in the full weight of his betrayal. When did I become that man? He whispered, wiping his face with a trembling hand. The man who would choose peace with his wife over loyalty to his mother? You became that man slowly, Thomas, I said, my voice quiet but firm. One silent acquiescence at a time. You allowed her to erase me because it was easier than confronting her. I don't know who I am anymore, he admitted. Then maybe, I said. This is your chance to find out. The lawsuit was a stone thrown into the pond of their perfect life. And the ripples were devastating. Helen's social standing crumbled. The same friends who had toasted her at Christmas now whispered behind her back. Invitations dried up. She was a pariah, branded as the woman who locked her mother-in-law in a room. Worse for her, the legal discovery process forced her to open her books. Her extravagant spending, funded in part by the financial ease my contributions provided, was laid bare. The $85 bottles of wine, the designer clothes, the luxury spa memberships, all while I was paying the majority of their mortgage from my modest pension. Thomas, racked with guilt, moved into the guest room. The marriage, built on a foundation of shared superiority, was cracking under the weight of truth. The hardest part was Leo and Clara. Thomas brought them to my apartment one Saturday. They were hesitant, confused by the sudden schism in their world. Clara, only 6, hugged my legs. Grandma, did you and Mommy have a fight? I knelt down. Sometimes, sweetheart, when people you love hurt your feelings very badly, you have to take a step back. It doesn't mean I love you any less. My love for you is a constant. It's like the sun. Even when you can't see it, it's still there. Leo, older and more perceptive, looked at me. Dad's really sad. I know, honey. So am I. But sometimes, being sad for a little while is necessary to stop being hurt for a long time. That visit was the first of many. My small apartment became their sanctuary, a place without tension, filled with cookies, stories, and unconditional love. As the court date loomed, Mr. Albright approached Benjamin with a settlement offer. They would return the $80,000 down payment and the additional mortgage payments I had made, a total of $128,000. In exchange, I would drop the lawsuit and sign an NDA. Benjamin presented it to me. It's a good offer, Rosemary. You'd be financially secure. You'd avoid the stress of a trial. I looked at the number. It was justice of a sort, but it felt bloodless. It wouldn't force them to truly face what they had done. No, I said. I don't want an NDA. I want a public legal record of what happened. I'm not taking a payoff for my silence. Benjamin smiled, a rare, genuine smile. I was hoping you'd say that. The day of the hearing arrived. I wore a simple navy blue suit. I looked like what I was. A respectable, wronged woman. Helen and Thomas sat at the defendant's table. She looked drawn and angry. He looked hollow. Our case was presented. The financial records. The damning audio recordings. Benjamin played the clip from Christmas Eve. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, listened impassively. When she heard the lock click in Helen's voice, her lips tightened. When it was their turn, Albright tried to paint me as difficult, manipulative. But his case had no heart. Ours was built on cold, hard recorded fact. The judge didn't even wait for closing arguments. The evidence presented by the plaintiff is compelling and frankly disturbing, she stated. I find in favor of Mrs. Ellis. The defendants are ordered to pay restitution in the full amount of $158,000. Furthermore, given the evidence of psychological abuse and unlawful imprisonment, I am mandating that Mrs. Helen Ellis complete 200 hours of community service at a facility for vulnerable seniors. She looked directly at Thomas. And you, Mr. Ellis, your failure to protect your mother, the woman who sacrificed for you, is a profound moral failure. I suggest you use this judgment as a catalyst for deep self-reflection. It was over. We had won. The victory was bittersweet. The money was transferred. My financial future was secure. But my family was in ruins. Helen was furious, humiliated by the very public loss and the sentence. She blamed Thomas for not controlling me, for not fighting harder. A month after the trial, Thomas called me. His voice was flat, empty. Helen moved out. She's filing for divorce. She says she can't be married to a man who let this happen. I felt a pang of something. Not quite pity, but a recognition of the monster they had created together. I'm sorry, Thomas. Don't be, he said. The house is so quiet now. I can finally hear myself think. And all I can hear is my own failure. Thomas started therapy. Real, honest therapy. Not the couples counseling Helen had insisted on that was designed to make him a more compliant husband. He began the painful work of dismantling the man he had become and searching for the boy he had been. He started visiting me regularly, without the children at first. We didn't talk about the case or Helen. We talked about books. We talked about his work. We sat in silence sometimes. It was awkward, fragile, but it was a start. One day, he saw the copy of The Wind in the Willows on my shelf, the one I'd given Leo. You kept it? He asked, surprised. I bought it for him, I said. But the sentiment was for you too. Do you remember? I read it to you every night for a year. His eyes glistened. I remember the voices you used for Ratty and Mole. I felt so safe. That's all I ever wanted for you, Thomas. To feel safe. And for you to want that for me too. It was the first time he didn't look away in shame. He just nodded, absorbing the truth of it. Helen's community service was at Glenwood Senior Center. Benjamin, with a touch of poetic genius, had ensured she was assigned to the laundry and cleaning detail. The woman who was so concerned with spots on her mirrors was now scrubbing floors and washing the soiled linens of strangers. A friend of Mavis's volunteered there and gave me reports. She comes in with her nose in the air, but it doesn't take long for it to be knocked out of her. The residents, they see right through her. They call her princess. Not to her face, but she knows. I didn't take pleasure in it. I saw it for what it was. A necessary humiliation. A forced dose of the humility she had so desperately lacked. 2 years have passed since that locked door. I am 72. My life is full. My knitting circle has become a source of deep friendship and support. I volunteer at the library, reading to children. I am Grandma Rosie to half the neighborhood. Thomas and the children live in the house. He bought out Helen's share with part of the restitution money. He is a different father now, more present, more patient, more humble. Our relationship is a careful, beautiful reconstruction. It will never be what it was, but what it is becoming is built on honesty and hard-won respect. The children thrive. They split their time between our two homes. My apartment is their second home, a place of stories and cookies and unwavering love. They have seen the consequences of cruelty, and I pray they have learned the value of kindness. Last week I was planting lavender on my small balcony, the same kind I had in my old cottage. Thomas stopped by with the children. Mom, he said, holding out a small, carefully wrapped box. This is for you. It's not an apology. Those are just words. This is a promise. I opened it. Inside, on a bed of velvet, was a single old-fashioned key. It's the key to my house, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Your house too if you'll have it. The door will never be locked to you again. Not ever. I held the key. It was cold and solid in my palm. It wasn't just a key to a house. It was a key to a future I had thought was lost. I looked at my son, and for the first time in years, I saw only the man he was becoming, not the ghost of the boy he had been. I don't need a key, Thomas, I said softly. I closed his hand around it. I already have everything I need right here. And I did. I had my freedom. I had my peace. I had the love of my grandchildren. And I had my son back, not as a caretaker or a burden, but as a man I was finally learning to respect again. The locked door on Christmas Eve was the end of my old life. But it was also the beginning. It taught me that it is never too late to demand respect. It is never too late to walk away from those who diminish you. And it is never ever too late to unlock the door to your own freedom and walk through, into the light. My name is Rosemary Ellis. I am a survivor. And my story is not one of vengeance, but of reclaiming the one thing they could never truly take, myself.